So, you might be wondering how to understand vocal technique, even if you've never studied any music or even anatomy. In this episode, I've got you covered with a simple breakdown of how singing actually works so that you can train your voice powerfully and safely, even if you cannot read music or don't consider yourself technical. Let's dive into it. Hi, my name is Maggie. I'm the founder of the Singing Insiders, where I help passionate singers just like yourself develop the best versions of themselves through singing. And in these episodes, you're going to get practical tools, techniques, exercises, and insights to help you up-level your singing skills. So, let's look at what it actually takes to understand vocal technique without necessarily needing a degree in music or biology. Vocal technique can be this very broad concept, and oftentimes singers that want to become better singers, they tend to say, hey, I just need to have more vocal technique. But what is it really? So let's start at the basics. Sound is created when air from your lungs passes through your vocal cords, which are found in your larynx. So your larynx, if you take your finger, and you start at the top here under your chin and you're going down, at some point you're going to feel a bump. For the male singers, that's also called the Adam's apple. That's where your two little rubber bands, your vocal cords, are located. And so sound is created when you have air that passes through those two little rubber bands or your vocal cords. So the sound passes, my vocal cords vibrate, and that will make a sound wave. Now that sound wave will then travel from my larynx, from where my vocal cords are, all the way out to my mouth. And there's many things that happen here. So the distance between your larynx, or where your vocal cords are, to your lips is called the vocal tract. And we can do many things with our vocal tract. We can make it bigger by, for example, lowering the larynx, or we can make it smaller by, for example, raising the larynx. But what is really interesting here, when you start to control your vocal tract, you can change the color of your sound. So I can, for example, sing belle mama, yo, which is pretty bright, or I can make it a little bit warmer, belle mama, yo. So I can change the color of my sound based on what I'm doing within that vocal tract. This is also where vowels, for example, are created. If I sing an E compared to an O, my lips move, my tongue moves, my soft palate moves. So depending on how I place my soft palate and my tongue and my lips, the vowels will shape. And we can use that when we're singing as well. That's when we talk about vowel modification, which is a whole other thing that we can get into it. But that's the basics. That's really the basics of the anatomy. You have air, it passes through your lungs. Then my vocal cords, they start to vibrate and the air continues to travel, but it has become a sound wave. And then I'm giving that sound wave some kind of shape by shaping my vocal tract, which then, gives you a vowel or a consonant. Make sense? That's the basics. Now, we're gonna go a little step further. I told you that our vocal cords in the larynx are vibrating when air passes through. Now, here's the beautiful thing, and this is the reason why anyone can learn to sing. These vocal cords, they're not staying how they are, meaning you can make them longer or shorter. So if you take a rubber band, you can make that rubber band longer, or you can make that all the way loose. And when you have the rubber band and you're stretching that, and you're then taking your finger and doing bling, the sound of that rubber band will be higher the more you stretch out the rubber band. Same thing happens with your voice. The more you stretch your vocal cords, the higher your pitch will be. The more you're shortening your vocal cords, the lower your pitch will be. So there's this movement, lengthening and shortening of the vocal cords. Then you also have another movement, which is bringing the vocal cords together. So we can put the cords next to each other, we can squeeze them onto each other, or, and this is really interesting if you ever see an actual voice in anatomy class, when you're breathing, the vocal cords actually open up. So when you breathe, the vocal cords are not even together. And then when you're speaking or when you're singing, then the vocal cords come back together. So the vocal cords can open and close, and the vocal cords can be stretched. So we got two movements, the stretching and the opening and the closing. There's two muscles that are responsible for that movement because the voice itself stays in place, but it's muscles that tend to stretch the voice and thus creating that higher pitch. And there's another muscle that brings the vocal cords together. The muscle that stretches the vocal cords, I like to call that one the head voice muscle. It's also called the official way, the cricothyroid. And then the muscle that brings the vocal cords together, I like to call that one the chest voice muscle, but the official term is a thyroarytenoid. We can play with those muscles, and those are the ones that you need to train when you're singing. Why? Because the thyroarytenoid or the chest voice muscle is responsible for bringing those vocal cords together. That results in power. Your head voice muscle is responsible for lengthening the vocal cords. That means we're singing higher. Oftentimes, singers come to me and they tell me, Maggie, I really want to be able to sing high notes like Beyonce, like these big diva notes. Ah! How do you do that? Without forcing or pushing or straining your voice? Well, it's simple. You need to lengthen the vocal cords because we're singing high pitches, and we're combining that with activation of the chest voice muscle to bring those vocal cords together, which creates power. Now, that's mixed voice. That is one of the most important techniques that I recommend you master. And I've done many different videos on that. You will find them on my channel as well. Now, if this has been valuable for you so far, my invitation to you would be to hit the like and subscribe button here down below to get notified for more singing tools, techniques, and tips like this one. But if you're ready to go beyond the basics and actually build your voice from the ground up with a real method, let's keep going because the main part is actually coming. We've had the anatomy of how the voice works. Then we looked at the two main muscles, the chest voice muscle and the head voice muscle. Here's an interesting and important distinction. We have a sequence in which we need to learn different vocal techniques. So, let me explain what I mean by that. A baby that is just born cannot walk, right? And a baby that is just born, my daughter is 5 months old, so I love seeing how she develops. But the same thing is true for your voice. A baby that is 5 months old will not walk right away. They will first roll over. She's close to that milestone right now. They will just roll over first. Then they might start crawling. And then they might start pulling themselves up and starting to walk. Logic, right? The same thing happens in your voice. Some singers, they hear those big belting notes and they're like, Maggie, teach me how to belt. And I'm like, sure, I'll teach you. But before you can belt, you need to have this and this and this and this technique mastered. Otherwise, we cannot belt because they need to be combined all together before we can go into the belting. So you need to have one technique in place before you can go to the next one and the next one and the next one. This is where I love to also use the metaphor of building a skyscraper. You cannot build the 50th floor of a skyscraper if you don't have a strong foundation. In singing, your foundation is your internal hearing where the music is supposed to go, and your breathing, your diaphragmatic breath. If those two things are not into place and you cannot do them correctly, why even try to learn to sing the high notes? Because without breath support, the high notes will be very, very hard to sing, for example. Or you might be doing it in an unhealthy way. We don't want to have that. So your vocal technique builds up. That is the main takeaway. So as you can see, hopefully you understand that singing isn't about being born with some kind of talent or natural gift. It's about training your voice in the right way. And once you realize that your voice is something that can be trained and built, that's where everything changes. Now, the next question then is, well, Maggie, okay, I'm with you, but how? What are the exercises? What should I focus on first? What is that foundation before I can build my skyscraper? Well, I want to keep this conversation going, and that's exactly what this next video is all about. So I will link to it on the screen. I will link to it in the description here down below. And if you cannot find it here or there, you can go to my channel and it's pinned at the top of my channel for you to watch. So my invitation to you would be to go to that next video so that we can keep this conversation going. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see you there. Thank you for showing up today and being here. We'll talk soon. Bye.